Probabilmente, ecco, deve partire anche lo streaming della conferenza. Bene, allora buongiorno a tutti, benvenuti a quanti sono in sala, a quanti ci seguono da remoto. Ricordo la possibilità per gli accreditati di seguire da remoto le conferenze stampa, richiedendolo in fase di registrazione e la possibilità di fare domande anche a distanza tramite il sistema di web conference. Oggi però è un'occasione certamente attesa. La pubblicazione del primo rapporto annuale della Commissione per la tutela dei minori, che diventerà, mi sembra di capire, un appuntamento regolare. Quest'anno ci troviamo di fronte a un documento ricco di informazioni, frutto di un lungo lavoro condotto qui a Roma e in tutti i continenti da parte della Commissione. Ve l'abbiamo fornito stamattina e sono certo che avrete avuto modo di esaminarlo con attenzione. Sapete bene che il compito affidato alla Commissione in questo ambito è quello di fornire un resoconto il più accurato possibile delle strategie e politiche volte a proteggere minori e adulti in condizioni di particolare vulnerabilità da situazioni di abuso in seno alla Chiesa e, alla luce delle informazioni ricevute, aiutare con il proprio consiglio le strutture ecclesiali ad essere luoghi sempre più sicuri per tutti coloro che vi si rifugiano e, chiaramente nel farlo, ascoltare e accogliere chi ha sofferto. È un compito complesso che richiede a volte di essere visti come scomodi, come inopportuni, perché voi richiamate a un bene più alto e più grande, quello di chi ha vissuto il male e ha diritto e bisogno di essere ascoltato. Per questo, a maggior ragione, sono felice che siano qui coloro che hanno lavorato e lavorano quotidianamente in questo senso, a cominciare da Sua Eminenza il Cardinale O'Malley, Presidente della Commissione per la tutela minori, e senza perdere altro tempo darei la parola a lui, a cui do un caloroso benvenuto. Grazie Eminenza.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good. Good morning, everyone. We want to thank all of you for your presence here today. It's consoling to see how many people from the press have come to join us. We know that the role that you have played in forcing the Church to confront our terrible history with abuse has been very, very important. That for many of you, this is a very personal commitment, and we appreciate that, and we're grateful for your presence here today. We are here today to present our pilot annual report on church policies and procedures for safeguarding. But before we begin our presentation of this document, we want to make one thing very clear. The Commission's work, including this report, is and always has been about recognition and inclusion of victims and survivors of abuse in the life of the Church. To all victims and survivors, I want to assure you that our desire is to do everything possible to continue welcoming you and addressing you in all the unjust suffering that you have endured. We praise your courageous testimony, and at the same time, we recognize that you are likely tired of empty words. Your suffering and wounds have opened our eyes to the fact that as a church we have failed to care for victims, and that we didn't defend you, and that we resisted understanding you when you needed us most. Nothing we do will ever be enough to fully repair what has happened. But we hope that this report and those that will come, compiled with the help of victims and survivors at the center, will help to ensure the firm commitment that these events never happen again in the Church. This pilot report, which comes as the Commission marks the 10th anniversary, is the snapshot of a journey of conversion that we have all been on. It's a journey towards a transparent and accountable ministry of safeguarding, towards greater outreach, welcome, and support for victims and survivors in their pursuit of justice and healing. The path that has led us here today is one that no one could have fully foreseen. Not only does it span decades, but it also extends across an untold number of painfully lived experiences, which we might only hope to acknowledge, respect, and honor to the best of our ability, always striving to do better. Allow me to try and help us understand this path, leading with humility and compassion by describing our journey as a church in the context of two periods. The first period I have experienced continuously over 40 years as a bishop. Through personal closeness to victims, their families and loved ones, their communities, I've heard powerful testimonies of the betrayal from being abused by a person in whom you placed your trust, and the lifelong implications caused by that abuse. I am tremendously grateful to the victims for their openness, allowing me to journey with them. Indeed, it's only by listening to them directly that we can learn the truth of their human dignity being repeatedly violated. Their stories reveal a deceitful period where church leaders tragically failed those who we are called to shepherd. It's a tragic period where church leaders make decisions without adherence to policies, procedures, or basic standards of concern for victims. It's a dark period that results in a loss of trust that hinders the church's ability to be a witness of Christ's love or to have a prophetic voice. Then there is a second period, one that we are beginning to see take shape in so many parts of the globe, and where accountability, care, and concern for victims is beginning to bring light to the darkness. It's a period where robust reporting systems are in place, allowing us to listen and respond to victims with a trauma-informed approach. It's a period where risk management protocols and informed oversight promote safe environments. It's a period where the church provides professionalized victim accompaniment services as a commitment to the journey toward healing. It's a period where all of those ministering and working in the church are provided with the training and formation they need to promote a culture of safeguarding. It's a period where the church fully embraces her safeguarding ministry. Our journey as church, including what brings us together today, is a story of our experience and progress between these two periods. Here the wisdom of Nelson Mandela's concept of our long walk to freedom rings true. Indeed, the Pilot Annual Report aims to show where we are in our journey on that continuum across the various parts of our journey. In this way, the annual report serves to hold a record of our path of conversion, of pastoral conversion, of a change of heart, of overcoming our sinful past, while always encouraging the continued road ahead. The annual report accompanies that ongoing transition with recognition that there is still much needing to be done. I want to speak briefly on the Commission's own journey, as we recently mark the 10th anniversary of its establishment. Consistent with Pope Francis' vision, The Commission originally set out to acknowledge and address the lack of space for victims and survivors in the Church to be heard and understood. It's over its first two mandates. The Commission welcomes survivor testimonies from throughout the world to build a knowledge of how the Church can better adapt a victim-centered approach to safeguarding. This body of knowledge directly informs the analysis found in this annual report. During the same period, the Commission called for greater accountability on the part of bishops and superiors, which resulted in the motu proprio come una madre amorevole. The Commission asked the Holy Father to convoke the Presidents of Bishops' Conference that brought about the summit in 2019. The Commission called for the drastic changes in papal secrecy for renewed commitment to transparency. From the beginning, the Commission has worked to promote best practices and develop model guidelines for safeguarding, which has prepared us for the responsibility for guidelines that was assigned to us in 2022. Previously, it was the responsibility of the DDF. Then, in its third iteration, and upon the Holy Father's promulgation of the Apostolic Constitution's 𝗪𝗕𝗕𝗢𝗔 𝐸𝑒vangelium, the Commission was placed within the dicastery of the doctrine of the faith. Our mission to collaborate with the dicastery emphasizes the need to ensure that the Church's justice and prevention measures are coherent in their complementarity. It also formally made the Commission a permanent institution of the Church, tasked with accompanying and assisting the local churches' safeguarding ministry. We enact that accompaniment mandate through three pillars. The first is policy review and victims advocacy, where we evaluate and suggest improvements to the safeguarding policies and procedures adopted by the various church entities spread throughout the world in almost all countries. The second is the capacity building through the Commission's Memorare initiative to promote the effective implementation of those policies and procedures. The third is reporting through the annual report to document progress, deficiencies, and recommendations. These three interrelated activities are on an ongoing basis, and this cycle forms the Commission's model for promoting change. Allow me to conclude with words of gratitude to several people and groups in particular. First, I want to thank our Holy Father for his bold vision and leadership in the promotion of the Church's closeness to victims and commitment to its safeguarding ministry. Secondly, I want to thank the Commission members, past and present, whose expertise and lifetime commitment to victims and their communities is deserving of our highest admiration. Third, I would like to thank the Commission's personnel who have worked tirelessly to see this project realized. I would also like to thank all the church entities covered in this report that engaged in earnest with the Commission's methodology. Their collaboration with this process is a testimony of a meaningful and ongoing progress of conversion. And finally, and above all, I want to thank the victims and survivors and their families, their loved ones, and communities, whose resolve has made this day possible by their courage to speak out, by calling the Church and her leadership to accountability. Thank you for your testimony and witness. It is to you that we dedicate this annual report. Thank you.
Grazie Eminenza. Grazie per le sue parole particolarmente quelle rivolte alle vittime. Grazie per averci descritto questo viaggio lungo 10 anni e anche il suo personale viaggio di 40 anni. Gli sforzi per contribuire al cammino di conversione della Chiesa tutta e anche a riparare quel tradimento di cui lei ci parlava. Per andare più in profondità nel documento che avete tra le mani, ci rivolgiamo a colei che ci ha lavorato in questo tempo, a 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, giurista e International Advocate for the Rights of the Child, dal 2022 membro della Commissione Pontificia per la tutela minori. Please, madam, I pass you the floor.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here with us today. Let me start also with a word of humility to those victims and the survivors, known and unknown, those who speak and those who cannot raise their voice, who may be listening or reading about this annual report. In the course of my professional career, spanning over half a century, at the international and global level, dedicated to combating violence against children in all its forms, and in particular sexual abuse and exploitation, I have seen and heard firsthand the urgent and resounding call for accountability and justice. For too long, this call has gone unanswered in the Church when it comes to responding to abuse committed by the clergy. And yet, with this first annual report, we, as a Commission, are engaging Church leadership at its highest levels, be it in the local churches or the Church's governance structure in the Vatican, in acknowledging the urgent need to better answer that call. In drafting our first report, mandated by the Holy Father to report on progress, we privileged a dialogue with our interlocutors wherever and whenever possible. We do realize it is far from perfect, but it has a sound methodology that will build over time to become increasingly comprehensive and robust. Of course, this first and foremost includes direct learnings from victims and survivors. And then in the years ahead, we will also develop our outreach to more comprehensively include the religious and the lay faithful. Finally, we know we, in collaboration with many others, need to significantly improve our data verification through cross-references with external sources. Our conceptual framework is comparable to what in international law is referred to as transitional justice. This framework is inspired by human rights law and is deeply consistent with Catholic teaching. And precisely because of its consistency with Catholic teaching, we believe the term conversional justice or justice and conversion is more applicable to the Church's context, while still exploring the four interconnected core principles of truth, justice, reparations, and the guarantees of non-recurrence, in other words, institutional reform. The combination of these principles will ensure a transition, that is the Church's conversion away from times of widespread sexual abuse that is frequently mishandled and covered up, to a new period when policies for safeguarding, reporting, investigations, and care for victims and survivors make abuses rare and provide appropriate responses. Or, as the Cardinal has said, our walk from darkness to light. The Commission's research, published on our website, explains how each of these principles are analogous to fundamental theological concepts in Catholic doctrine and tradition. The annual report is a tool of conversional justice in two main ways. First, it records the critical transitions as they progressively occur in different parts of the Church around the world. This transition is characterized by the initial development, implementation, and inculturation of safeguarding policies, guidelines, and procedures. Second, Through its sharing of good practices, it accompanies the continued pastoral conversion required to integrally consolidate the new period, as characterized by the advancement of truth, justice, reparation, and institutional reform. This report also promotes the Church's commitment to a rigorous human rights-based and victim-focused response to the scourge of abuse, consistent with the recent reforms of Book 6 of the Code of Canon Law that frames the crime of abuse as a violation of the dignity of the human person. As I often have been quoted, children are not mini human beings with mini human rights. The reform to Book 6 and this annual report contribute towards ensuring that truth, which is first and foremost about breaking the silence and meeting victims where they are. Because of the Commission's global purview, this report and its subsequent editions are uniquely positioned to work towards providing a comprehensive account of the policies and procedures across each of the capillary realities of the Church. In its first section, it focuses on the safeguarding practices of the local churches, there where Catholics live out their day-to-day lives around the world, in their parishes and communities, and place their trust. The second section focuses on trends across the continental regions, providing an insight into the regional variations of the response to abuse in its manifold manifestations. The third section focuses on the safeguarding practices of the dicasteries of the Roman Curia in an attempt to promote an all-of-government approach to safeguarding for the universal Church. And finally, the fourth section focuses on the Church entities operating in the broader society as they aim to serve populations also outside the Church. Based on my experience as the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Sexual Exploitation of Children, reporting to the UN Governance, General Assembly and Human Rights Council on thematic or local issues, I stress the long-term impact of such reporting mechanisms as the result of a cumulative sequence across my predecessors and successors' reports, which are always the fruit of dialogue with numerous stakeholders. The reporting tool that we are presenting today, 100 pages, is one that will allow the Church to offer victims and their communities an honest account of progress and persistent gaps over time, accompanied by recommendations for those who are in a position to do so, to fill these gaps. Regrettably, much of the Church remains without robust data collection practices or capacities, and yet data is key to our ability to promote an accountability. And therefore we must commit to investing in the Church data collection infrastructure and resources. In short, this is primarily a tool for accountability over time. However, it also offers mechanisms for change in the short term. In the report, the Commission makes specific recommendations to each Church entity that it covers. Alongside these recommendations, we assure those Church entities of our availability to help and to accompany them in their implementation endeavors. The bona fide engagement and cooperation from Church authorities on implementing these recommendations is crucial for systemic and lasting change to occur. The report also serves as a coordinating tool for sharing good practices while also calling Church leadership, the faithful, and all those of goodwill to urge their implementation. This is what it means to create a true culture of safeguarding. We are all called to participate according to our respective roles, talents, and capacities. And finally, a note on the meaning of the depiction on the annual report front cover. Native to large parts of the African continent, the baobab tree is often known as the tree of life and is an important symbol of resilience and community. We believe that this might serve as a concrete sign of our support to each and every victim, whistleblower, or any other person in an atmosphere of trust and safety. With the change of mindset that accompanies our path to conversional justice, the Church can offer the protective environment that this tree symbolizes. It is my prayer today that today might be one of those moments that history will look favorably on, or better yet, a moment in time that our little ones, the little ones that Jesus asked us to protect, will look upon as a promise for a church safe for everyone. So let me end by quoting the famous American poet Robert Frost. "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your words. Thank you for quoting also this poet, Robert Frost, which is dear to many of us, more than would be known. Thank you also for having described the methodology, the principles that are behind this huge work, the difficulties also in what you mentioned, for instance, concerning the data collection, but also the opportunities, like that of indicating some good practices that can be found in your work and which can be the object of study. So thank you for these words. E ora aprirei alle domande da parte dei giornalisti. Ricordo che qui con noi, oltre a Sua Eminenza e alla dottoressa 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, sono qui per rispondere anche Sua Eccellenza Luis Manuel Herrera, segretario della Commissione, la signora Teresa Morris Kettelkamp, segretario aggiunto della Commissione, Suor Mary Miluca Perrera, della Congregazione di Nostra Signora della Carità e del Buon Pastore, membro della Commissione e coordinatrice del Catholic Care for Children International della 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, e infine Juan Carlos Cruz, che non ritengo personalmente abbia bisogno di presentazioni e che per me rappresenta un caro amico a cui sono particolarmente felice di dare il benvenuto. Grazie, e a voi giornalisti, benvenuti. La parola. Cominciamo forse da Carol Glatz e poi andiamo avanti.
Hello, Carol Glatz, Catholic News Service. When Mari Collins resigned in 2017, some of her reasons were a sense of cultural resistance within the Curia, a lack of resources being dedicated to safeguarding, and the extreme slowness in progress. Reading this report, especially the findings on page 12 and the profile of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith, it seems those problems still exist. Is that reading accurate? And even though we've had the reform of the Curia, a change of leadership within its ranks, the commission embedded within the DDF, Vos Estes was issued, we still have these problems. And finally, also, it's been repeatedly said the conversion of heart is key. How is it that even today, even in the Curia and its hierarchy, this is still lacking?
Carol, your question was for whom in particular? Okay.
Well, let me begin by saying that certainly Mari Collins was one of our most beloved and valuable members of the commission. We were sorry when she decided to step away. We understood the reasons and we commented on them at the time. All of us have felt that frustration of the slowness of change coming about, but we believe that the change is taking place, and we feel as though our obligation is to continue to working for it, even though it's often an uphill climb. The fact that the commission is in a way being embedded in the within the Curia and given a permanent status, I think will be very helpful to our work. We're just beginning at that. and the conversations that we're having with the various dicasteries have been, I think, very fruitful and helpful. And I don't know whether other members would like to contribute to the response.
Gracias. Yo prefiero hablar en español. Podría compartirles mi respuesta en italiano, pero lo hago también por mi convicción que todo este trabajo que estamos haciendo a nivel mundial tiene que tener también otros lenguajes, además del inglés y además del italiano, para tomar conciencia que hay víctimas que hablan español, que hablan francés, que hablan polaco, que hablan otras lenguas, y que la mitad precisamente de los católicos hablamos español, y es ahí, en el contexto latinoamericano y en los países de Latinoamérica y el Caribe, donde tenemos que impulsar cada vez más estas políticas de prevención. Por eso permítanme expresarme en mi lengua materna. Y lo hago teniendo en cuenta también de lo que dice el cardenal Jean O'Malley. Soy el miembro más viejo, tengo 10 años en la Comisión Pontificia y he visto todas estas resistencias, no solamente en la curia vaticana, sino también en la iglesia local. Y es una de las cosas que más me ha impactado, más me ha tocado. Ha sido una cruz para mí ver la resistencia de la misma institución a la que amo y a la que he entregado mi vida. Pero sin duda alguna también he visto muchos cambios significativos en estos años. De hecho, en estos 5 meses que llevo como secretario de la Comisión Pontificia ya no me alcanzan los dedos para contar la cantidad de encuentros que he tenido con los dicasterios, especialmente con aquellos relacionados con esta temática. Y he encontrado realmente una apertura en todos estos dicasterios que he acompañado, que he visitado, y un deseo de caminar juntos. Sí, ciertamente falta, y de hecho ustedes lo ven en las observaciones que nosotros pusimos. En la tercera observación es necesario una gestión cada vez más eficaz en cada uno de los dicasterios de la curia romana, pero también constatamos, y lo constato a nombre propio, que ha habido, digamos, una apertura en muchos de estos dicasterios.
I think Juan Carlos wanted to add something.
So I want to speak first as a survivor and then as a commission member. I never thought we would get to this day, to be really honest. If you would have asked me 12, 15 years ago when we were beginning, at least my fight, others have been fighting for even more years and decades, I never thought I would be sitting here, that I would be working on something like this with extraordinary people. So I first want to thank Pope Francis for believing survivors, for caring for survivors, for being sincere and not uttering fake words, for being truly, truly invested in this. I want to thank all the commission members, the cardinal, every commission member, the staff who are extraordinary people. The cardinal and Maud and everybody has already said it, but survivors known and those unknown. And I want to go even further, thank those who tragically are not with us today. Many have committed suicide or left this world without any hope. To them, this day is important. And yes, I want to thank all the journalists that have brought our cases to life, these tragedies. Without you, maybe we wouldn't be here. So that's, as a survivor, I want to thank you and thank everybody that I've mentioned. I also want to say as a committee member that I have tremendous hope in this annual report. As I hear my colleagues speaking, as I've heard, months and months of how do we write this, who got the answer for this, what are the proposals. Putting this together was not easy, but it was done with enormous conviction that this is an important first step. And this doesn't mean either that we move on and everything that's happened before doesn't count. Quite the opposite. We can't move forward if we don't bring everybody from everywhere together with us and with their pasts, and we are transparent about the cases that linger, that the places where we still don't have any data. But this is important, and it gives me hope. And we're using words that we didn't use before: truth, justice, reparation, and a guarantee of non-recurrence. Those are heavy, heavy words that before were taboo in many places. So yes, I speak as a victim survivor, also very privileged to be along these people and close to the Holy Father, who I respect enormously and love tremendously, because now I can see a path forward for so many that have been crying for years, and for so many that maybe haven't had the courage, and rightly so, to tell their stories, that at least there is a new day. And that new day is only going to get better. That's my hope.
Grazie, Juan Carlos. Please, Mora.
Perhaps you want to move on to the next question, but I just want to say one more word about the resistance which was referred to. I as the other speakers, I think that the times are changing. Us being within the created presso at the DDF implies the need for cooperation, and this cooperation is nascent. We are entering into a dialogue. The important is that we all understand that safeguarding has a lot of components. Safeguarding is holding the perpetrator accountable, but safeguarding is also preventing from the abuse to occur, and more than anything, reaching out to the victims, listening and learning from them. And if perhaps times backwards, there was a firewall between the jurisdictional side and the reaching out to the victims, I think that firewall is gradually sort of disappearing, because we realize, all of us, that we are complementary and that everything is needed for a safe church. And so I think that that realization that we are complementary is a really important signal, and we can jointly provide the guidance to the local churches, which is so important, because the subsidiarity principle is real. That's where the victims live. That's where the perpetrators are. So the local churches have to know not only how to do the proper prepare the instruction and the investigation. They have to know how to reach out to the victims, to the families, and through the cooperation which we hope to develop with the other parts of the DDF. Together, I think we can prepare the future even better, but there is definitely a beginning.
Thank you, Mister. Facciamo Javier Martinez Brocal e poi continuiamo da lì.
Grazie mille, sono Javier Martinez Brocal del quotidiano ABC della Spagna. Volevo chiedere, non so se a Sua Eminenza o a Ali o forse a Juan Carlos, la questione, c'è un momento dell'informe che si parla della figura di un ombudsman la proposta di fare un procuratore, però poi non viene menzionata nel resto dell'informe. Non so se ci potete raccontare un po' su questa proposta e anche se avete già avuto qualche prima risposta, qualche primo feedback della dottrina della fede sull'informe in generale, non su questa questione. Grazie.
Comienzo yo, pero yo creo que Monseñor Ali puede decir más. Claro, estamos muy preocupados por la dificultad que tienen las víctimas en conseguir informes sobre su propio caso, ¿no? El dicasterio siempre dice que el lugar donde se debiera acudir es a la iglesia local, que tiene más capacidad por la cultura, la lengua, la experiencia del caso, de poder aclarar y responder a las preguntas. Pero vemos que eso no está funcionando. Así hemos comenzado esta conversación para ver si podríamos iniciar algunas estructuras que podría ayudar en esto, ¿no? Pero está simplemente empezando en este momento, pero una de las primeras recomendaciones para el DDF sobre la necesidad de tener más comunicación con las víctimas, y esto ha sido una posible respuesta y camino que seguir. No sé si el Monseñor Ali quisiera añadir alguna cosa.
No, prácticamente sería lo mismo. Es un descubrimiento que nosotros hicimos especialmente en los grupos focales que se hicieron de víctimas. La queja permanente, constante, es la falta de comunicación. Comienza un proceso canónico, después muchas de estas víctimas no saben absolutamente nada de este proceso. Esta misma situación, esta misma queja, no solo lo dicen de los organismos de la curia romana, sino de las iglesias particulares, de las diócesis, de los encargados de sus procesos canónicos. Por eso, pues una propuesta que comenzamos a trabajar especialmente con la sección disciplinaria de la DDF, es esta figura de un defensor del pueblo, lo llamo yo en mi contexto latinoamericano, o también un procurador de las víctimas, pero es solo una propuesta, está en trabajo.
Grazie. Forse, would you like to add something more?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just wanted to add that based on experience in secular life, the role of an ombudsman can be extremely helpful in bringing about systemic changes. It's not just dealing with individual cases, it's pointing to a situation where improvement is possible. And for the time being, this is really a conceptual proposal which has to be developed, thought about. But at the end of the day, what it is will all be about, again, is about transparency. It's to serve the victims, the families, the communities, by informing them what are the avenues, which jurisdiction is responsible. All this is sometimes highly technical, and victims need to know who to turn to. The ombudsman can make sure that this information is relayed in a friendly way, that it's understood, who is responsible, who is doing what. This should be seen in parallel with the other proposal, which is also in our general observations in the beginning, which is the idea of a procurator who really will be assisting the individual concerned, the victim concerned, to do the necessary, to denounce the crime, to claim damages, ask about where his or her particular case is at the moment. That's something separate. But the two things together are just another two manifestation of one particular wish, is to make the church not only safe, but also transparent in the way it brings about this safety.
Grazie, dottoressa. Grazie. Arriviamo un po' più in fondo, poi torniamo più avanti, non vi preoccupate. Andiamo a 𝗂𝗕𝗎𝗓, giù in fondo c'è 𝗂𝗏𝗓𝗔.